sure your Bibles are still open there to 1 Chronicles 19. Again, Joab found himself in a tough situation. They were outnumbered, outgunned. People before him and people behind, Syrians in the front and the Amorites in the back, Amnon in the back. Boy, he was in a mess. So he divided the two men. He divided his army, two groups, one set for the Assyrians and one set for his brother behind. He said, if they begin to defeat me, if they're too strong for me, you come help me. And if they get too strong for you, I'll come help you. And we saw how God delivered him. But boy, it was a mess when he first looked. They had gone to battle not expecting that kind of crowd, not expecting that kind of... They had hired a great number against them. So it wasn't just them against the one little group. They were outnumbered, they were outgunned, they were overwhelmed. I think we find ourselves that way today. So how to fight when things look bleak? I mean, he looked and he says, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. They've got us outnumbered. They've got us in front. They got us in back. We didn't anticipate this. We don't know what to do about this per se. So just overwhelmed. And the outlook looked bleak. I mean, when you hear what he said, be of good courage and let us behave ourselves valiantly for our people and for the cities of our God. And then he added on, and let the Lord do that which is good in His sight. It didn't sound real confident. It didn't sound like, well, we've got this under control. This is not going to be a problem. We're going to pull through. He says, no. He said, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. I'm not real confident about it. I don't have a warm, fuzzy feeling about this, brother. He says, but we're going to go ahead and fight anyway. And I think most of us right now know a lot about that feeling. Coming out of this pandemic, and it came on quick. It came on hard. It was just, we were going through normally, just as we do every single day, and all of a sudden it was masked. All of a sudden it was 6 feet apart. All of a sudden it was washing our hands. All of a sudden it was, you got to close down the stores. You can't go to the stores. You can't go to the restaurants. You can't go to church. You're going to die. It's just going to be terrible. People dying in the streets. And boy, just all of a sudden we were closed down. And for a year we've been kind of scratching our head, figuring out what we should do, what we should not do, how we're going to do it, what should happen. And even as we come out of it, it's just odd. Yeah, a lot of more people are moving around, but it's still with the mask situation. It's still with the unusual situations at the restaurants and in the stores. And it's brought a real malady, if you will, a real melancholy feeling, I think, on many people. A lot of depression on people. Speaking to a man today, he was just depressed. It's not normally his style, but he was been depressed. I've talked to other folks that are discouraged and down and not really sure, can't really put their finger on it. Has anybody else been like that? I mean, it's just you can't quite put your finger on it. You can't quite figure out what's going to happen. You can't figure out what to do. But I'm glad God gives us an answer, I think, tonight on how to fight when things look bleak. How to fight when we don't have that good feeling. How to fight when we're not sure how it's going to turn out. How to fight when we're not sure it's going to turn out like we want it to or how it's going to go. So I'm glad God gives us an example here of Joab. He says, boy, this is not what I expected. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. He says, but here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to battle when the things look bleak, when we're not sure what's going to transpire, when we're not sure how to go through with this. So tonight, we need to apply it to ourselves. I need to apply it to my heart. You need to apply it to your heart. Well, our church needs to apply it. Folks that are kind of off on the sidelines, that are still trying to figure out what's going on. It looks too bleak. They're depressed. They're discouraged. They're cooled down. They're setting themselves aside. I'm saying we've got to learn tonight on how to fight, how to go forward when things look bleak. Are you with me tonight? We won't be very long, so let's stay with it. This is how we fight when things look bleak, when we are a little discouraged, when we are a little down, when we can't figure out what is going to happen. Very simple thoughts we find from this passage today. First of all, how are we going to fight when things look bleak? Number one, recognize the battle set against us. We need to recognize the battle set against us. Notice what it says in verse number 10. When Joab saw that the battle was set against him. The battle was set. The word set there means to exist. He said he saw the battle existed. He saw there was a fight that was on. He saw that there was a challenge coming. He saw that there was a battle, there was a fight, there was a war coming against him. If nothing else tonight, let's realize there's a battle set against us. There is a battle set against us. I believe it's in your notes. The war is won. Amen? I'm glad we're on the winning side. I'm glad we've read the end of the book. We know Satan is defeated foe. We know at the end Christ comes back to the earth. Battle of Armageddon. He rules and reigns for 1,000 years, and we that are saved with Him. And then the great white throne judgment, and then a new heaven and a new earth. And the eternity begins, and all the prophecies done, and all that is gone. Boy, we're on the winning side. So the war is won. But, don't you hate it when somebody says but? But the individual battles are undetermined. Just like in any great war, even in World War II and World War I, when the outcome has been settled, they say, yeah, we've won. Hitler's been defeated. The Japs have been defeated. But there's still some battles that were lost. So yes, we're on the winning side. The war has been won, but the battles are undetermined. You may go through some battles, and no doubt are going through some battles, and you may think, I'm not going to win this one. And by the way, you haven't won all the battles. Somehow we've got the idea that there's never a defeat, there's never a backing up, there's never a difficulty. But you read your Bible. The battles sometimes aren't always won. The war is won, but the battle is undetermined. So tonight, as we look at the battle that is set against us, we can win the battle, but it's not determined yet. We're going to have to fight. We're going to have to learn. We're going to have to go forward. We're going to have to glean some things from the Word of God if we're going to win the battle. Because the war is won, but the individual battles that you and I face this week, this month, are undetermined. Very quickly, some simple thoughts about this. He said that when Joab saw the battle was set against him, he looked up and he saw it and said, this is tough. This is a real battle, and it's set. Very quickly, number one, as we think about our battles, there are battles not of the flesh. There are some battles that we're in that are not of the flesh. You say, what are you talking about? The Bible tells us over and over that we're in the battle against rulers of the darkness and the prince of this world. Ephesians 6:12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Our fight, the real battle he's talking about there, is not of the flesh. It's not something we can physically touch. It's not something we can physically wrestle. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. We're wrestling against principalities and against powers and against rulers of darkness. Are you understand it's a spiritual battle that we're in? It's a spiritual battle that is set against us. As the devil fought God, and of course he lost that, but the devil fights us because he hates God. And we're in a battle against demons. We're in a battle against the devil. We're in battles against the powers and rulers of the darkness of this world. We forget that. That's one thing the devil wants to do in our lives, is help us. He wants to make us forget that it's a spiritual battle that we're in. When the world moves against the church, when the world moves against the Christians, when the devil begins to work and tear down the things of God and fight against the things of God, it's not just politics. It's a spiritual battle. I know some things are political, some things are just kind of general, but I got news for you. I think sometimes we account things to be things just general when really the devil's against the things of God and against the spiritual things, and the other things are just on the side. Are you understand what I'm saying? Sometimes, it's really not after the church. It's just all businesses. I'm afraid that it's really often against the church, and the businesses are the side casualties. Are you listening to me? We have to understand we're having that kind of battle, that kind of going on. So the battle is set against us, but it's not always of the flesh. In Ephesians 2:2, it says, wherein in times past you walked according to the course of this world. You get the idea? God has a lot to say about this world. This world is not our friend. This world is not our home. It says you walked according to the course or the manner or the ways of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. So the rulers of darkness, the prince of this world, the prince of the power of the air. In John 14:30, Jesus said, hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh and hath nothing in me. So we've got the prince of the world, spiritual battles that we're in. So we have to recognize the battle is set against us. You say, well, I'm not looking for a battle. You don't have to look for a battle. It's out there. Just lift our eyes and lift our spiritual eyes and see the battle is set against us. We've got the rulers of darkness, the prince of this world, and the god of this world. 2 Corinthians 4:4, in whom the god of this world. I wish we'd realize this world. It's over and over. It says the princes of this world, the god of this world, the course of this world. This world is not our friend. This world is not what we're supposed to model after. Another message. In whom the god of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them. So there are battles not of the flesh. That's why we have to be spiritually equipped. That's why we have to be spiritually strong. That's why we have to be filled with the Spirit, because it's not all the battles. All the battles are not of the flesh. But, there's that word again. There are battles that are of the flesh. See, here's our problem. We want to focus on one or the other. We have to realize there's battles of both sides. There's battles that are not of the flesh, spiritual battles. And as a church and as Christians, we're going to have to understand that as Christians for generations before have had to go to battle. They've had to make sacrifices. They've had to fight. They've had to stand with the right spirit, but stand in strength. So we must also. And I can't help but believe it's going to get worse and worse over the next 6 months, next year or two. We're going to have to make some battles. We're going to have to be strong in that and realize the battles are not of the flesh. They're spiritual battles. But then we have to realize also that there are battles that are of the flesh. I mean, this old flesh we're battling. It's this old flesh we're fighting against. For example, in Mark 4:19, we're battling battles of the flesh about the cares of this world. It says, and the cares of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, and the lust of other things entering in choke the word, and it becometh unfruitful. We're in a battle with the cares of this world. I mean, just the burdens of the world, just the normal things of life that have become so hard. I mean, we thought it was hard before, but now with all the mask and all the rules and all the separation and all the not fellowshipping and not touching and all those sort of things that are come, it's just even getting harder that the cares of this world are choking out the word in our life. The deceitfulness of riches. We worry about the economy, and as the economy goes down and we worry about that, that causes us to be unfruitful and chokes out the word. The lust of other things, just desiring more and more. And as we become more secluded and more isolated, we become focused on more and more on things instead of people. The flesh. Romans 8:12 reminds us, so these are the battles of the flesh. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if ye live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if ye through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. There's a battle going on with the Spirit and the flesh. And we must crucify the flesh. We must die to the flesh to do that. In Galatians 5:17, for the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and they are contrary one to the other, so you cannot do the things that ye would. There is a battle with the flesh. Hello. See, we get so much often we think, well, it's just a spiritual battle, so I'm just going to go ahead and live the way I want to. No, there's battles both sides, and the battle is set against us. How many battled the flesh this week? I'm not going to ask you if you won, but we battled the flesh. I mean, it may be about going to bed, it may be getting up, it may be eating, it may be not eating, it may be doing right, it may be doing wrong. There is the battle of the flesh. It's set before us. So if we're going to know how to fight when it looks bleak, we have to recognize the battle. There is a battle set against us, to oppose us, to fight against us. The battles are sometimes not all of the flesh. They're spiritual battles, but sometimes they are of the flesh. Very quickly we notice in this passage the battles are both before and behind. The battles are both before and behind. I can only imagine Joab's feeling. Though he was a great warrior, he's an experienced warrior, he was the captain of the guard, the army for David. Verse 10, and when Joab saw the battle was set against him, before and behind. On every side. I got news for you. I'm seeing that we're in a battle before and behind, on the right and on the left. Boy, for seasons in our life and in our churches and our Christian lives, many times it seemed like it was just right there in front of us. We're battling that. But He's sneaking up behind us also. He's on the left and He's on the right. We are just surrounded. Every venue, every side, we seem to be battling. The flesh and the spirit and the politics and our own selves and our families and just it's just everywhere. Boy, and you're going to find it's going to get worse and worse. Just be surrounded by it. So we have to recognize the battle set against us. So we don't need to be depressed. We don't need to be discouraged. But let's recognize that we're in a war. I mean, the Marines, or you join the Marines, or you join the Army, you join the Navy, then you're surprised because you go to war. No, that's just part of what the business is. And so we have to recognize the battle set before us, before and behind, which takes us to the next point. How do we fight when it looks bleak? Well, we recognize the battle is set before us. Secondly, we need to remember the brethren in the battle. Remember the brethren in the battle. It's before us and behind us. Notice in verse number 10. Now, when Joab saw that the battle was set against him before and behind, he chose out of all the choice of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians. So he was going against the Syrians. So he said, here's my bunch. He said, we're going to go fight the Syrians. And the rest of the people he delivered under the hand of Abishai, his brother, and set them in array against the children of Ammon, no doubt behind him. So he's got the Syrians in front. We got Ammon behind. So he divided them. He says, I'll take these guys in front. Brother, you take those in behind. Verse 12, and he said, if the Syrians be too strong for me, then thou shalt help me. But if the children of Ammon be too strong for thee, then I will help thee. We need to remember the brethren in the battle. So, preacher, what does that mean? If I can use a more modern vernacular, we need people to have our backs. We are very apt, I am apt, I don't know about you, but I am apt to be a kind of a lone ranger. Just going at it myself. But when we got the battle before us and behind us, we need somebody to have our backs. And two, we need to have other people's backs. Do you follow what I'm saying? We're going to have to understand in this battle, we are surrounded. And we need to help the others, and others need to help us. We need to be working together. We need to have people's backs. We need to have people's backs that are in the church. People need to know somebody's got their back. Somebody's there to help them. Somebody's in their battles when they say, I can't fight both directions. I can't work both directions. I can't do it. I need somebody to be with me. I need somebody to labor with me. We need to understand that. Our spouses need to know we've got their backs. Our spouses need to know we're not part of the battle against them, set against. Well, isn't that funny? That's how we feel sometimes. Our spouse is set against us. But no, I've got your back. We're working together on this. We're fighting together. We're remembering the brethren in the battle. He said, here's my brother. He said, we've got some people. We divide them up. So we're working with this bunch. You work with that bunch. And if you need me, I'll be there. If I need you, I expect you to come. And so for our spouses, we need to know that we have their backs. Our kids need to know we have their backs. That in the battles where they go and the questions that arise, we've got their backs. We're there to encourage them. The church brethren need to know that. We just need to have each other's back. 1 Peter 5:9, talking about Satan attacking, it says, whom resist, steadfast in the faith, listen, knowing that the same afflictions, which afflictions? Same, are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. So, preacher, I feel discouraged. Probably so does everybody else sometimes. I'm apprehensive. I don't know how this is going to happen. They talk about a new strain coming out, of new virus coming out. And they're talking about having more rules. And they talk about having this. And how are we going to do this? I'm getting discouraged. I'm getting afraid. I'm getting upset. So's everybody else. So's everybody else. Same affliction. But we need to remember the brethren. Philippians 2:4, look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let's remember the brethren in the battle. How do I fight when things look bleak? How do I go forward when things look like it's not going to turn out? When I can't see how it's going to go, when just like Joab said, this is not what I expected. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm worried. How can we do it? Let's recognize the battle is set before us. Let's gird up. Let's get our armor on. Let's get ready for it. But then also we need to remember the brethren. Joab had a plan, and it's God's plan also. Remember, you're not alone. We need to remind others they're not alone. That's what the body is about. That's what the church is about. That's what Christianity, the Christian family is about. See, when we have these problems and difficulties come, people are flaking out. They're flaking off. They're going out this way and going that way, when we ought to be coming together. We ought to be uniting. We ought to be encouraging one another. We ought to be blessing one another. We ought to be strengthening one another, having each other's back. We got to remember in the battle, it looks bleak. I know it looks bleak sometimes, but we got to remember that we're not in this alone. There are others. That's why it says in Ecclesiastes, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, then one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth. And a little bit farther on it says, if one prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken. He said 2 are better than 1 because 2 can do a better fight than 1. 2 can go to the battle better than 1. 2 can fight a stronger enemy than just 1 can. And so God reminds us about that. So Joab, when he saw it, he didn't say, boy, we're in a mess, I quit. He didn't say, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. He says, no, here's a plan. We're going to help each other. We're going to work together on this. You help me and I'll help you, and we'll set these things up. You be in your place, I'll be in my place. He said, I've got all this half of the army. We're going to be over here. You've got that half of the army over there. We're going to work together and get through this. As we remember, we're in the battle, remembering the brethren in the battle. That's why it says in Hebrews 10:24, we often preach about it in one respect, but here is the perfect example. Let us consider one another. Let's be thinking about one another. Let's be concerned about one another. Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works. He said, boy, we're in a battle. We need to provoke one another. That's not talking about making people angry, but that's talking about stirring them up, charging them up, getting ready to go. We need to be provoking one another to good works, not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another. So we've got provoking, we've got exhorting, we've got considering one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. Church is not for clubbing, it's for battling. Are you listening to me? Well, somehow we got the idea church is just for a club. It's just we come to make ourselves feel good. We just come to fellowship, but fellowship is good. We do enjoy that. We do feel good when we come to church. But the idea is that church, we're good soldiers of Jesus Christ, and as we see the day approaching, we've got to be exhorting one another and provoking one another and considering one another. It's for battling. Well, we've got to remember the brethren in the battle. Boy, let's get around God's people. Not flee from God's people, but get around God's people. Build up God's people. Encourage God's people. Because as you encourage them, they'll encourage you. And we have that unity because 2 is better than 1. And just like Joab says, this is the plan. So Joab had a plan. God's plan is basically the same. We encourage one another and we remember the brethren one for another. How do we fight when it looks bleak? Let's recognize the battle set before us. Of course battles never look good. The enemy never looks weak. Let's remember the brethren. Number 3, respond boldly in the battle. Respond boldly in the battle. That's where verse 13 comes in. He said, I'll help you, you help me, we'll divide up. Verse 13, be of good courage, and let us behave ourselves valiantly for our people and for the cities of our God. We need to respond boldly. First of all, in our manner. In our manner. How we respond when it looks bleak. How we respond in this battle. As our kids are watching and other Christians are watching and the lost are watching and we're in this battle. How do we respond? In our manner. I like what it says. Be, verse 13, of good courage. He didn't say have good courage. He said be of good courage. And I tried to wrap my mind around that and think about that, and because God's always careful about the words He uses. Be of good courage. So I began to put it this way in my own life. If I don't have it, I'm to be it. If I don't have it, I'm just to be it. I don't have good courage. Well, be of good courage. Just be good courage. Have that strong courage in your life. Just be it. Or as we might used to say, fake it till you make it. Man, I'm just going to be it. I'm going to be good courage. I like that manner. I like that attitude. That's why in a parallel passage that talks about this same event, it says, play the man. Play the man. Play the man. He said, we're surrounded. As Joab said the same thing. He's just got, in that passage, it's got the extra phrase in there. It says, play the man. He said, man, we got to play the man. Just grow up. Just play it. Well, I don't feel like a man. Play the man. I don't feel like going to battle. Go to battle. I don't feel like going to work. Go to work. It's just playing the man. Be of good courage. Be of good courage. Play the Christian. Play the good Christian. Play the courageous. He said, let's do it. Let's let God work in our lives and strengthen us and do what we need to be, and let God do His work in us. So in our manner, let's respond boldly. How do you do that? In our manner, let's be of good courage, and then not just be, but behave. I love that word. There's a whole series I'm going to be preaching, I think, about behave. The Bible's full of things about behave. Behave. Here it says, verse 13, be of good courage, and let us behave ourselves. What's the next word, class? Valiantly for our people. Valiantly. So there's a difference between being courageous and being valiant. The difference between being courageous and valiant is determination. Because we've got courage, that's overcoming the fear, or fighting in spite of the fear, fighting through the fear, fighting with the fear. But valiantly, that means courage plus determination. It's going to be valiant. It's going to be hard, but we're going to do it. It's getting tougher, but we're going to keep going. It's getting more scary, but I'm going to keep going. That valiant spirit, that valiant attitude. So we need to respond boldly. You say, preacher, I'm depressed, I'm discouraged, it looks bleak, I'm not sure what's going on, I'm getting a headache, I want to just go to bed and sleep, I just don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, I want to quit. We all tend to say that during this time. But we need to also relearn how to respond boldly in the battle, in our manner. Behave ourselves valiantly. Psalm 60, verse number 12. Through God we shall do valiantly, for He shall tread down our enemies. That's key. How do we do it valiantly? Through God. Through God we shall do valiantly. I've got to be... See, valiant isn't just a feeling, it's what you do. It's how you do things. Through God we shall do valiantly. Let God work valiantly in us. Through God we will do it. Boy, let's be valiant. That's courage plus determination. That kind of goes along with what the Apostle Paul said. He said, I therefore so run, not as in certainty, so fight I, but not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. He said, I just got to keep going. Valiantly. Be of good courage and behave valiantly. Act valiantly. See, that's not the spirit, that's how we behave. That's how we work. That's how we go. We get up in the morning and instead of telling our kids, oh, this is so bad, this is so hard, I feel so sorry for you. You can't go to school. Or I feel so sorry, you have to go to school and you have to wear a mask. Oh, it's just terrible and you can't go. Oh, let's just cry a while. No. You behave valiantly. It's going to be all right. We're going to win. That's what, it looks bleak, but we're going to have that valiant behavior. How are we behaving? Well, I have to make sure that I behave valiantly. I have to behave valiantly for my spouse. I have to behave valiantly for our school. I have to behave valiantly for the church. You need to behave valiantly. How are you behaving? That's what he said. Let's behave ourselves. Verse 13, be of good courage. Let us behave ourselves valiantly. That's in our manner. But then we have to respond boldly, not just in our manner, but with the right motive. With the right motive. You say, preacher, why? It'd be easier for us to just go find a cabin somewhere and disappear. I know, but there's a different motive. Notice what it says. Verse 13, be of good courage, and let us behave ourselves valiantly for our people, for the cities of our God. The motive is others. I hope, will this make me feel good? It might, but that's not the motive. The motive is others. Joab says, this looks pretty bleak. I'm not sure I like where this is going. He says, but I have to behave valiantly for others. For others. He said, we're in the battle for others. We're in the war for others. We're being strong and bold for others. We're having a right spirit for others. We're remembering one another for others. For our people. Verse 13, for our people. That's the ones we know. That's the ones we know. That's the ones we can see. That's this generation. That's the next generation. That's our kids. We look and see them. It's worth the fight. That's what he's saying. It's worth the fight. Our people are worth the fight. Your kids are worth the fight. Those kids in our Christian school are worth the fight. Those kids we've had to drop off, we don't have them on the bus ministry right now. They're worth the fight. The people we find on the street, they're worth the fight. The people in our towns, they're worth the fight. The people that we know, the people in the church, the people that are on the outskirts, the people that are fearful because they don't know what's going to happen and that things look bleak and they're falling off by the wayside and their homes are being hurt and their testimony is being hurt. Their lives are being hurt. Their spirits are being hurt. Their Christian walk is being hurt. It's worth the fight. Amen. We have to respond boldly in the battle, both in our manner and for the right motive, for our people. For those that are saved, that we know, it's worth the fight. For those that we desire to be saved, it's worth the fight. Our people. That's what we just need to claim. That's our people. Sometimes I'm reminded that God says He's placed us here in this city, in this valley, that I like to look at it sometimes, and I don't always measure up, but I like to think of myself as I'm the pastor of Pleasanton. I've not done it yet, but I think I will. Hi, my name is Bill Bryson. I'm your pastor. I think I'm going to start doing that. They don't have a church. They don't have a pastor. I'm your pastor, and I want to make sure that you know me and that I'm going to invite you to our church. It's our people. It's our people. Do we see this city as our people? Do you see your family as our people? It's worth the battle. It's worth the fight. We respond boldly in the battle in our manner and for the right motive. That's for our people. Those that are saved, those that we desire to be saved, and those who we're fighting to see saved. And then for our city of our God, notice what it says. Be of good courage. Let us behave ourselves valiantly for our people and for the cities of our God. That's for those we don't know yet. People in the military are fighting for people they do not know. They're dying for people they do not know. Oh, they may think, well, I've got my mom back home, I've got my wife back home, my kids back home. But they're fighting for people they do not know. He said, I know they're there, but I don't know who they are. I know there's a bunch of them out there, and that's who I'm fighting for, and that's who I'm dying for, that's who I'm working for, but I don't know them. And that's what he's saying there for the cities of our God. He said, for our people, both those in the battle and those that civilians at home, but also for those that we don't know, the cities. Wow. Let's have the right motive. You know, if we can get our eyes off ourselves and we say, boy, it looks bleak, but there's people out there that need something that I've got because God is working in my life and my heart, I've got to go in the right manner and for the right motive. How to fight? Have the right motive. How to fight? Have the right manner. Even when things look bleak. Very quickly we find in verse 13. How do we do it? How do we fight when things look bleak? Rest, believing the battle is the Lord's. Rest, believing the battle is the Lord's. Look at verse 13. Be of good courage. Let us behave ourselves valiantly for our people and for the cities of our God. And let the Lord do that which is good in His sight. Let's just rest in it's God's battle. It's God's battle. 1 Samuel 17:47. And all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and He will give you into our hands. That's what David said, the battle's the Lord's. It's not sword and spear, though that's what we battle with, but the battle is the Lord's. When Jonathan and his armor bearer went and were getting ready to attack that group in 1 Samuel 14, verse number 6, and Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, "Come, let us go up over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised." He said, "You and I, just us two, against that garrison. It may be the Lord will work for us." I like that. He said, it may be. It may be. He said, this is what we're going to do, this is what we need to do, but it may be, which means he may not. It may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. But it's bleak. How are we going to keep fighting? Just rest in the fact that the battle's the Lord's. I'm not fighting for me. I'm not fighting just for my pleasure. I'm not fighting for my spirit. It's the Lord's battle. And I just get to be one of His foot soldiers in it. Looks bleak sometimes. Joab looked and said, "Whoa, this doesn't look good." But he says, here's what we're going to do. He said, I see the battle is set against us. We got the battle, might as well fight it. Got the battle, might as well go against it. Don't just sit here and be slick. Joab could have said, well, looks hopeless to me. Let him come chop off my head. No. He said, I see the battle is set. Let's recognize the battle. Let's remember the brethren. We're not in it alone. Don't let others be in it alone. Let's respond boldly, and let's just rest believing. We're on the winning side. The war is won, but the battle is still a question. We can still win, but we must fight it. Let's bow our heads, please.